you should know. So we're talking about resonance and the seat of the sound, right? So let's try a couple more exercises. We did the hum. There are lots of sounds that will help you find the inception of the tone. So go back to your hands on your belly so you feel that, and let's go zoom, 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 zoom. Zoom, 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 zoom. Right. Zoom, 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 zoom. Good. Zoom, 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 zoom. Do you feel that movement down there? Zoom, 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 zoom. Yeah. Zoom, 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 zoom. Zoom, 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 zoom. Now try this one because this is part of it too, where your solar plexus is, right? The rectus abdominis, the abdominal wall there. Zoom, zoom. See what happens when you do that. Zoom, 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 zoom. Something down there. Zoom, 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 zoom. One more. Zoom, 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 zoom. What does that feel like? It's expanded. Yeah? It expanded kind of contracts at the same time a little bit, doesn't it? There's this kind of movement where there's a little opening, but there's also, it gets taut, tensile.
Actually, like a caterpillar.
Yeah. A caterpillar, it feels like it. Okay, good. So
the sound felt shallower.
it felt shallower.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Not down here.
right. Okay. Maybe you're creating too much tension. If you think, oh, okay, it's getting tight, and then you tighten it, right? That will inform the chords as well. So this is why I say when there's tightness in the body right here, there will be a reaction in the throat. And so the last thing you ever want is to go rigid down here. You want to feel that tensile strength, that healthy, flexible strength, but never to the point where it gets rigid, like when you go to the bathroom, for example. Right? Not, it's not a great example, but anyway, it's a good example. It's just almost taboo. You don't talk about it, although we all do it, right? But you know that feeling of pushing. That's not how you sing. You don't want to go there. And that's where we go when people say, use your diaphragm to support. It doesn't work. You do that, right? It doesn't work. The throat closes, right? Let's go, say, put your hand right here, go, wee, 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 wee. Right? There's a lot of activity going on. There's resonance, there's all kinds of things going on, right? This is where the sound starts, right? So a little surprise gives you the breath, and then you just engage. You just make the tone. You don't worry about how or where or any of this. You just, it's the intention to say something that sets the system moving and vibrating. You don't have to know how you do it. God forbid you have to look after your speech all the time and go crazy, right? It just happens, right? When you speak, you just breathe and you speak. You just, right? You don't have to control all these things. And singing is an autonomic nervous system activity. It just happens. It's better if we know what happens. And then we can nurture it, we can enable it, we can support it, we can recognize it. You don't really want to control it. That's not really what you control. All right? Good. So, yes.
So when you talk about surprise, when you're bringing the air in, you're actually not taking that much of a breath in reality.
No, really. No, it doesn't. Well, it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like it because you're not tightening around it. And it also depends on the level of surprise, right? So you can have a gentle surprise and it's like, oh, or you can be more surprised, right? Or, and that's a huge breath. But you see how that relates to my ribs, right? They widen and they raise. They widen or rise, right? So there's and you can't expand without the rise, and you can't rise without the expansion. They're related. So try it now. Find different levels of surprise. So grab find a little breath, kind of a relaxed, gentle surprise. Oh, right? Yeah, you see, you just want to do that, don't you? This is perfect. It's perfect because the impulse to make a sound is so strong, isn't it? It's like, oh. It's there, and so you just use it, right? Then, how about a bigger surprise? there's more breath, there's more energy. How about a huge surprise? I mean, look at how much breath is there. Now the trick is to learn to manage that much breath. And the problem is that until these muscles get strong and flexible, and you can manage, see, I can manage that much breath. I can open my ribs and I can hold it there without that pressure pushing up against the bottom of my cords. And then my throat shutting down to prevent the air from flowing out. Are you following me? Right? And so a little breath, okay. Oh, I can do that. A bigger breath, okay. But I'm starting to feel a bit of pressure, right? A huge breath, and it's like, oh, right, you just shut down, otherwise you lose all the breath. So the trick is, over time, to strengthen and make these muscles strong enough and flexible enough that you can manage a huge amount of breath without it. But you see what happens to my voice when I have that much air and that much energy? Now that's the singer's, right? Projection. It's all about that energy. So the trick is to get strong enough to be able to manage this air down there, to keep it low enough in the lungs that it's not trying to push up against your cords. Yeah.
Are you inhaling through your nose or through your mouth?
No, through my mouth. I only inhale through my nose if there's enough time for like 4 beats or something for a slow breath, because through your nose it can only come so fast. Like you would never be surprised through your nose. Right? Try it. You can, right? Yeah. So this is something we have to be careful with, right? Because you can see that it creates tension. Because you can't do it as fast as you need to. Through the mouth, it's immediate. It's there. Full tank. Through the nose, it takes a couple of seconds. So if you have a whole measure, yes. And then you learn to take it really deeply. But in between phrases where it's quick, no time. Yeah. Yeah.
I noticed that it's going kind of to a different place. Like when I do the big surprise, I feel it back here.
Yes. And that's the difference between your relaxed, what I call a low everyday breath, which is abdominal, where you don't have to do very much, and the high intercostal breath that you find when you need a lot of energy for some physical activity, which singing is one, right? And so that's the difference. And so it's not like one breath is wrong and the other one is right. They're different kinds of breaths, and they give you and require different sorts of energy. And for singing, this one is just not enough, because it's like too far from, it's not really, I mean, you're always breathing in the lungs, but what you haven't done is open the intercostals. And so to breathe down here at the expense of the intercostals doesn't help you, because this is the energy you want. So stand up for a moment. And breathe through your nose slowly until you're really full. And just notice how when it begins, right, it's like filling up a glass. It's bottom of the body, right? It's in the belly. And as you get fuller and fuller and fuller, you begin to open the intercostals. Right? And when you're completely full, you're up here, right? That's the feeling you want for singing. And that's the feeling that we want to sustain and engage and suspend and live in as a singer. And so when you breathe deeply enough to fill up, the bottom's going to move. The diaphragm has to move out of the way. You're going to feel this drop, right? That's a given. Because the diaphragm has to move out of the way, it has to pull the lungs, organs have to move out of the way just a little bit so that the lungs can expand. But then you need the outer half of that breath. The one that causes your lungs, the ribs around the lungs to expand. And you want to hold on to that. Does that make sense? Have you done a couple of deep breaths like that to feel the difference? Okay, 2 questions. Yeah.
When you were fully expanded up here, what's happened down here?
It's also expanded.
Okay, because it feels to me when I get full here.
It's going to pull on it a little bit.
It tends to do this.
Yeah. It's not going to be as expanded as when there's no energy up here, right? So yes, when you lift your ribs, it's going to pull on that wall because we're connected. And so you're going to find a little leaning through the abdominal muscle, for sure. But you still have to, your job is to relax it, to let the body do what it does, And don't get in the way, and just notice it. So this is when people say, I haven't forgotten you, when people say breathe down here, yes, well that's half of the story. If you breathe into your belly at the expense of your ribs, you're in trouble. So you can't breathe down there. It's only to learn the feeling of dropping the diaphragm. Once you know the diaphragm is dropping, breathe high, right? So no, don't breathe high. No, don't breathe into your shoulders, but breathe into your lungs. This is where the lungs are. In fact, all the way up to here. Your lungs are all the way up to here. Yeah? So you have to breathe high as a singer. And I'm going to get in trouble too, but you know, I don't mean high like this. I mean in your ribs. You had a question?
I'm new at this and I'm learning, this is a new language.
Yes.
And it's exciting.
Yes.
But what do you do with these stupid things?
I know.
I'm sitting here going on my pants.
I know.
Like,
Just
any
let them.
thoughts or.
Put it when you're, if you don't need them, if you're not holding music, relax them at the side of your body. If you're sitting down, rest them on your lap. I know, it's a big one. People just don't know what to do with them. Try to not worry about them. You know, as a singer, you're a six-sided box, a very strong core with like a nebula, you know, with arms of sort of cloud that just swirl around that don't really do anything. They're just there. They don't help you, especially not the pecs. So, yeah. So when you're sitting and you're not holding music, then just rest your hands on your lap and learn to relax the parts of you that are not engaged in the singing. It's a big problem when we start grabbing in places because the tension transfers so the body compensates and then you're in massive tension. So there's nothing to do. Yeah, just learn to let go. Yeah. All right, good.